Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Max Warframe. Whereas the sun is rising, we're going to be taking a look at the latest addition to the latest craze of creating sets of weapons. The scythe based on the Paris, the Anku. Now the Anku is the first scythe that has been introduced into the game for the longest time, and it's the first to be included in the Tenno research lab in the Grand Dojo. Now, I don't know what the resources needed to craft the Anku are going to be right now. However, it was confirmed on the forums that although it does need a former, it does not require any other weapons to be able to build, so some of you guys can breathe a sigh of relief. But regardless of that, what are the stats of the weapon like? Well, with a base damage of 70, it immediately puts it at the top of the list of the size, with the majority 56 coming in the form of puncture, 10.5 as impact, and 3.5 as slash. Now this makes the Anku special, since there are very few weapons that actually deal puncture damage as their primary damage type within the melee. But the great stats do not end there. It comes with a great critical chance of 20% and a fantastic 200% multiplier, making this weapon berserker viable with ease, which is further enhanced by the fact that it has an above average attack speed of 1.1 attacks per second to begin with. In fact, the only bad thing I can think to say about this is that the status chance is only 10%, meaning that the status builds are not really viable at all, and that really is dragging at the bottom of the barrel just to try and find something bad to say about it at all, just in the interest of balance really, but honestly I haven't got a bad word to say against it. Now in terms of stances, I'd love to be able to sit and give you an in-depth analysis of the two mods, but quite frankly, there is really nothing to choose between the two available stances. Personally, I go for Stalking Fan, which is actually the one that matches the polarity, because I like the amount of multi-hitting strikes in the combo Dying Light, which is actually very easy to do. Now I'm not saying that Reaping Spiral was a bad mod or a bad stance, and honestly if you prefer that one then go for it. It's all about personal preferences and making the weapon suit your own playstyle. Okay, so let's move on to starting to mod the Anku. Now it comes with a polarity on the weapon, it comes with the V polarity as standard, and it also comes with the double dash for the stance mod. Now in terms of mods, we've got two different builds that really I'm going to be running on this weapon. Now for this build we got Stalking Fan in the stance slot, which matches the polarity. We've got Pressure Point for melee damage. We've got Primed Reach. Now Primed Reach is one of those that is going to be very hit or miss with some people. Primed Reach adds another 2 meters to the weapon, from 3 meters to 5 meters. Now that might not sound a lot, but actually it's a fairly good sort of quality of life increase, I would say. It's something I've been running a lot on the hate, and this does have the same range as the hate, so it's something I've been using a lot recently. It's going to be one of those though that sort of you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, and I wouldn't really recommend doing it unless you're going to have the max prime reach on there, but it's, you know, personal preference more than anything else. We've got Berserker, which is going to work with True Steel. So every time the crit procs, it's going to proc Berserker, which is going to make it even faster. And then obviously we're going to have True Steel for the crit chance to work with Organ Shatter for crit damage. Now for this build we've got mostly sort of elemental mods. So we've got Shocking Touch Northwind for magnetic and Fever Strike, and this is the Corpus build. If we want to go for Grenier, swap out the Northwind for Molten Impact. You've got Radiation and Toxic. And if you want to go for the Void, just switch these two around, and then you've got Corrosive and Heat. Now the second build is we've got Stalking Fan in the stance slot again, and we've got Pressure Point, we've got Berserker, Organ Shatter, True Steel. This time we've got Life Strike in there, and then we've got the 3 elementals again. Now as you can see on this build you don't actually need the extra former. I have added 2 former to this, which is a dash and another V. The other V was purely because if I wanted to put the Primed Reach on there, which I think I am going to probably play with quite a lot. It's more of a quality of life increase than anything else. But this is another build that, you know, if I wasn't trying out the primed reach, this is probably what I would go for normally. Either one is good. This one is one form or less. So it sort of depends on what you want to do with the weapon. This is a perfectly fine build. Again, max life strike, just because one channeling hit will pretty much give you all of your health back anyway, so that's the way I go with it. I don't like channeling very often, which is why I go for the max life strike. But again, personal preference. So on to my recommendation as to whether this is worth the time, effort and resources invested into maxing it. The answer to that is absolutely yes it is. The size of one of those weapons that have really, they've been forgotten, and they've been the class that people just simply overlook, even when talking about buffing certain melee classes. Things like the daggers get talked about all the time, but the scythes just get completely overlooked. The weapons themselves, the Reaper Prime, the Hate, the Ether Reaper, they're all fantastic looking weapons. They just gather a lot of dust in most people's inventories. I've actually been using the Hate myself fairly recently, and it is a lot of fun. And I've had quite a few people giving me strange comments for using it, because nobody ever actually sees it being used. But the Anku is one of those weapons that you can justify using for more than just nostalgic purposes. But quite frankly, it's more than that. The combos in both of the stances look absolutely epic, whether it's the spin or whether it's planting your scythe into the ground and kicking it at enemies. The theatre surrounding the stances is stunning. The thing that kind of frustrates me, however, is that in this forgotten class, the overlooked weapons, we get a brand new weapon that simply outclasses and overshadows every single weapon in the class. Even the Reaper Prime and the Hate. It's got more base damage, even for the substantial crit chance increases at a chance to kick in. The Anku really overshadows the rest of the scythes. I mean, it's not a top tier weapon by any means, mostly because of the way its puncture damage drops off more quickly than a slash does at higher level, just because of the way corrosive works against armour. But as a Grineer focused killer, it's astounding. But what it's going to hopefully do is pull attention back to the scythes and why they're so underused. If it takes a new decent weapon to the class to refocus attention on the previously forgotten weapons and bring them up to date, then that's absolutely fine with me. But, you know, my saltiness aside, the Anku really is a fantastic weapon, and although it might not necessarily sound like it from what I've been saying, it's an absolute blast to play with. Absolutely fantastic damage, great attack speed even before the Berserker spools up, and a weapon that quite frankly looks stunning. The Anku is definitely the saving grace for the entire class of melee weapons. Hopefully it's going to inspire change to bring them back into relevance again. As always guys, many thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, it helps me out a ton, and I shall see you in the next episode.